You're listening to Keith Sports News. Hey folks, happy Friday. That means welcome to another episode of KSN, episode number 63. And yes, this new intro music after I came back from my hiatus. And as you can see, if you're watching, I know you don't have to watch because it's mainly just me talking to the webcam. I am in this room. That's right. Sometimes I'll do episodes in this room. The reason why I am doing this particular episode in this room is because I was hanging out. I was chilling in this room last night. I say last night, Thursday night, okay? And in front of me is my bedroom TV. And this is the room that I did that live stream of me watching the MLB All-Star Game. Yes. All right. So, the shirt that I'm wearing, oh yeah, CFL, baby. That is my number one favorite sports league. I'm sure most of you know that by now, for those of you that have been following this podcast mainly all summer long, because that is a summer and fall league. And last night, I was watching the Thursday night CFL game in here. And let's get into that right now because it was a great game. It was the Ottawa Redblacks against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I did pick the Blue Bombers to win. The game was at Winnipeg. The Grey Cup will be in Winnipeg this year. And that is Five Tayer's favorite team. Yes, the MVP of this channel. So I did pick Winnipeg to win. They lost last Saturday. It was a heartbreaking loss for them against their rivals, Calgary Stampeders. So I'm like, well, there's no way. Like, they can't lose another game, you know, even though Ottawa had a big road victory against the Grey Cup champions, the Toronto Argonauts. Let me tell you, Week 10 was clearly the best weekend for this year's CFL season. All 4 games were close games. Yeah. And Dustin Nielsen, I believe he said during the Blue Bombers Stampeders game, which was the last game of Week 10, he said, he basically said, Week 10 has been wild. Good luck, Week 11. So, we're now in Week 11. I say that because the game was another amazing one. It was a close one. All right, it's hard to remember what happened in terms of the big plays. But I was watching it, all right? Yeah, I did pick the Blue Bombers to win. I thought they would win this pretty easily. No. Well, the first half, they were winning 20-3. 20-3. And I'm like, oh, well, this might be a one-sided game. You know, some fans would probably turn off the game. Not me. I usually stay as long as possible. All right. A lot of CFL games aren't really one-sided blowouts. Okay. So 20-3 at halftime. All right. So then the Redblacks, they scored a touchdown in the third quarter to make it 20-10. And how about I remember this player for the Blue Bombers, Brady Oliveira. He got another Blue Bombers touchdown to make it 27-10 at the beginning of the fourth quarter. So I'm like, okay, 17 points, that's a 3-score game. All right. And the Redblacks got a field goal to make it 27-13. And man, Ottawa Redblacks quarterback Dustin Crum, is that his name? Yeah, Dustin Crum. There was a play where he escaped a huge sack and he basically did a shovel pass. And the player for the Redblacks caught it. There was no Blue Bombers defender near the guy, and it was like, wow, that was really cool. That was really cool. A lot of times that shovel pass doesn't really work. It's a dangerous move, but that worked, man. That worked, and not too long after that, unfortunately, their quarterback injured his knee and he was out for the remainder of the game. So then the backup quarterback came in, and not too long after that, they scored another touchdown, 27-20. So then this was under the 3-minute warning. And remember, under the 3-minute warning, they stopped the clock, okay, after each play, and then the referee would blow his whistle so that the game clock will start ticking down. And then after the next play, the clock will stop, so that way the official can put the ball in place, blow the whistle, and the clock resumes. See, they would do that in college football every time a team scores a first down. Or excuse me, every time a team gets a first down, they stop the clock to move the chains. I forget in the UFL, because the UFL season ended 2 months ago. I forget. They do have a 2-minute warning. UFL has a 2-minute warning. I think they probably do stop the clock on first downs after the 2-minute warning. I think that's what they do. Now college football has a 2-minute warning. NFL has always had a 2-minute warning, and for whatever reason, the NFL just doesn't want to stop their clock. Maybe that's why the 3 timeouts are so important. CFL gets 2 timeouts. So a lot can happen under 3 minutes because of the rules. They stop the clock after each play. Then they'll resume the clock before the next play. Man, my chest is sweating. I don't know why. Probably because I turn off the AC. Anyways, the Blue Bombers quarterback, I believe he was in the Grey Cup last year. So, 27-20, Blue Bombers are winning by a touchdown under 3 minutes. Okay. Blue Bombers get the ball, and their kicker Sergio Castillo, who made a 63-yarder in last Saturday's game against the Calgary Stampeders. Yeah, that was the game where they took the lead, and then Calgary won at the very end. Well, Sergio, that field goal that he made last Saturday, I didn't notice. He tied the CFL record, the longest field goal in history. Damn, that just shows you he's a great kicker, if not the best kicker ever. So then he comes out. He was going to make I forget how long the field goal was. I think it might have been 50-something yards. And man, he almost made it. It went to the left. He kicked it far enough, but it didn't go through the uprights. So whenever a team misses a field goal, the player from the opposite team must return the ball out of the end zone, because if you don't do that, you give up a single point. The end zones are gigantic. That's what makes CFL interesting. So the Ottawa Redblacks player, his name is Khalil Pimpleton, somehow, after Sergio Castillo missed the field goal, somehow Pimpleton returned 117 yards for a Redblacks touchdown? How on earth does that happen? You can't make this stuff up. And I remember, I think Glenn Suter, the analyst, he was saying something like, well, you thought Week 10 was a great weekend. Here we are once again. Another fantastic game. And, first game in Week 11. Another fantastic game, That's basically what he said. And I'm like, yep. That's freaking nuts, man. Oh my gosh. And they tied the game 27-27. And I was like, uh-oh. We might go to overtime. But wait, there was still a minute left. Winnipeg has to do what Calgary did to them last Saturday. Score a game-winning field goal. And that's what they did. Sergio Castillo came out again. 47-yard attempt. And he made it. No time left. Blue Bombers win 30-27. What a game. What a game. Winnipeg needed to win that game. I saw a graphic on SportsCenter because I was watching the SportsCenter on TSN show after the game ended. It said that the Blue Bombers lost 4 out of their last 5 games. Wow. So now the Blue Bombers are 4-4, and the Redblacks are 3-6. Now I'm going to make my predictions for the rest of Week 11. Tonight's game, Friday Night Football, the Toronto Argonauts against the Edmonton Elks. To me, this is a coin flip. The Elks got a huge road victory against my favorite team, Montreal Alouettes. The Argonauts, they still don't have Chad Kelly. I don't think Chad Kelly's coming back. And remember, the Argonauts are the Grey Cup defending champions. The Argonauts are 2-7. And the Elks are 2-6. So the 2 last place teams. Yes, the Argonauts are in last place in the East Division, and the Elks are in the last place in the West Division. That's the main reason why this game's a coin flip. All right. Guess I'll go with. I mean, this could go either way. You know what? Let me look up the weather. What's the weather going to be like in Edmonton? I mean, if it's hot in Edmonton, that means it's super hot. Pretty much, I live in South Louisiana. You know how far away that is from Edmonton? You know how far north Edmonton is? Edmonton is above Calgary. So, let's see. Like, if it's hot in Edmonton, I can't imagine. It's still super hot where I live. Okay. Oh, wow. Friday Night Football? What time is it? What time's the game? 8 p.m.? I think Edmonton's in Mountain Time. So that means the game's going to be at 7 p.m. It's going to be cloudy, and it's only going to be 55 degrees. Wow. But I'm looking at the rest of the week, the temperature is going to rise back up. They must have had like a big storm. Usually when it rains a lot, that's when the temperature drops. So, okay, well. Still, this game could go either way. It's like I should do my own coin toss. I mean, I'll cheer for Edmonton because Toronto's in the same division as the Alouettes. Even though I'm gonna cheer for the team that beat my favorite team. I'll go with after last week's wild weekend, I guess I'll go with the road team. I'll go with the Argonauts, even though the Argonauts lost at home last weekend. Maybe they'll bounce back. I guess I'll go with the Argonauts. I usually try to watch every game, and I've watched most of the CFL games because none of the games are on at the same time, just like the UFL. So that's the best part. However, there's a chance I might miss this game because it's two not so good teams. Although I miss a game, I did miss one game last Saturday. That was the Ottawa Redblacks and the Toronto Argonauts, and that game turned out to be a super high-scoring game. But I did watch the highlights. So if I miss this game tonight, then I'll watch the highlights. Saturday afternoon. Now, this is the game. Perhaps the biggest matchup of the year yet. The two first-place teams. Hamilton Tiger Cats at the Saskatchewan Roughriders. That is a must-watch game. I will definitely watch that game. The Tiger Cats are 6-3. The Roughriders are 7-1, and the Roughriders had a bye. They did not play last weekend. So they are the favorites to win, and I'm going to have to go with the Roughriders. I'm going to go with the Roughriders. They're going to be fresh off a bye. The Tiger Cats, they lost at home in overtime against the BC Lions Thursday last week on August the 7th. I can see the Rough Riders winning this game pretty easily. That team is kind of scary. The Rough Riders are the best team. They only got one loss. Yeah, I got to go with the Rough Riders. Plus, they're the home team. They'll have their, the crowd. They usually have a great crowd. The Blue Bombers game, they had a great crowd too. And then the game after that, my favorite team, Montreal Alouettes, against the BC Lions. Wow, those are like the two Wow, those two teams are so far away from each other. So Montreal has to fly all the way to Vancouver. Take on the BC Lions in a rematch. Yes, I say rematch because a couple weeks ago the BC Lions, they beat the Alouettes. I think it was by 1 point in Montreal. So Alouettes need to get payback. Plus they can't they really should have won last week. I can see this game go either way too. Now Alouettes, they are a pretty good team. They're 5-4. Lions are 4-5. So if the Lions win, Alouettes lose, that means they're both their records will be 5-5. Well, the thing about the Alouettes, see, I watched all of their games live. They can play really good, okay? Their problem, it seems like they can't play well for full 60 minutes. Like in the first half, they might play well. The second half, not so well, you know. Um, I think they can win this game. You know, the Blue Bombers, they won after their heartbreaking loss, so I think the Alouettes can win too. And I guess I will pick them. I think it's going to be a close game though. I can see all four of these games, the rest of these games, the rest of these three remaining games in week 11 can all be great, and we can have back-to-back fantastic CFL weekends where all four games are close ones. I can see that. All right. So, speaking of football, college football, I mentioned that earlier, NFL as well. Their seasons are coming up pretty soon in a couple of weeks. College football season will begin the last weekend of August. Also, Labor Day weekend. Labor Day is early this year. It's on Monday, September the 1st. And then the weekend after that will be the NFL's regular season week 1. So, college football, they released the power rankings. Okay. This week, I've been only listening to my favorite podcasts on Sirius XM. Okay, so I got into listening. I came back to listen to the Paul Feinbaum Show. The Paul Feinbaum Show is on the SEC Network, as well as Sirius XM and the ESPN app from 2 to 6 p.m. Central Time, Mondays to Fridays, weekdays. And I would mainly listen to his show from August to February. Okay, so about 6 months, and then the other 6 months I won't listen to that show because I don't really care about the off season much. Just like same with the other leagues, you know, other sports leagues. So they were talking about the rankings. Okay, so I was listening to the Paul Feinbaum Show, and of course my number one favorite, Mad Dog Unleashed with Christopher Mad Dog Russo. He was also talking about the AP Top 25 preseason. So I'm gonna go through the rankings and give you my thoughts. So number 25 is Boise State. Boise State was in the playoff, the 12-team playoff format last year. Number 24 is Tennessee. Now that's surprising. They were in the playoff as well. And they're an SEC team. I wonder why they're not in the top 15 or top 10. Number 23 is Texas Tech. 22 is Iowa State. 21 is Ole Miss. 20 is Indiana. I forgot. People forget. I bet a lot of people forgot that Indiana was also in the playoff, even though they got smashed by Notre Dame. 19 is Texas A&M. 18 is Oklahoma. Oklahoma, they had an okay season last year, but now they're in the top 25? Okay. I don't know. Listen, I don't know how they determine the rankings before the season begins. In my opinion, there shouldn't be a rankings. There shouldn't be a rankings before the season start. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I don't know. Right now, the rankings don't mean anything because the season hasn't begun. You know what I'm saying? It will mean something in October, like the second half of October, which is like the second half of the regular season, I think. Yeah. All right, well, let's just keep going here. 17 is Kansas State. 16 is SMU. SMU was also in the playoff, but they got smashed by Penn State. 15 is Florida. 14 is Michigan. 13 is South Carolina. 12 is Illinois. I think Illinois played against South Carolina in that bowl game last year, and that was a very close bowl game. Even though I was confident that South Carolina would win, but I think Illinois won that game. Correct me if I'm wrong. 11 is Arizona State. Number 10, Miami. 9, where I live, LSU. 8, Alabama. 7, Oregon. 6, the runner-up in the national championship game, Notre Dame. 5, Georgia. 4, Clemson. 3, the national champions, Ohio State. 2, Penn State. And number 1 is Texas. Okay. Well, Texas, all I know is that I assume that their starting quarterback is going to be Arch Manning, the grandson of Archie Manning. So he's going to be like the big star this season. So I think Texas will be a great team. I can see Texas winning the SEC championship game, especially if they're not going to face Georgia or Alabama in that conference championship game. So, yeah. I got to be honest. Listen, I like watching college football. I always find that entertaining. But years ago, I used to watch it. I used to watch a whole bunch of games, meaning I was a big fan. Like the CFL now. I'm a huge CFL fan. Okay? College football, like I'm talking like over 5 years ago, like 10 years ago. Okay? College football, it was really fun back then, and it was also different at the same time. It was also different, you know. This is like a new era of college football. And I'm not saying that I don't like it, but I don't know, it just feels a little weird sometimes to me. It might be because of the 12-team playoff format, and it's all about the money nowadays, you know. But I still find it entertaining. However, back then, I would watch a lot of games from different conferences. But since last year, I mainly watch SEC football because I really like the SEC on ABC. After many years of the SEC on CBS, last year CBS got Big Ten games and ABC got the rights to having SEC matchups. And I really like the SEC on ABC a lot more than when it was on CBS. I got tired of it on CBS, especially after Vern Lundquist left CBS. He was my favorite announcer. SEC on ABC, there would usually be 3 games and 3 of the best commentating teams. Joe Tessitore with Jesse Palmer, Sean McDonough with Greg McElroy, and the number 1 team, Chris Fowler with Kirk Herbstreit. I like all those guys. So yeah, they are the main reason why I watch SEC football on ABC. And I really like the presentation. I really like it. So that's what I mainly watch. Plus, I live in the Southeast. SEC stands for Southeastern Conference. So there you go. If you live in the Midwest, for you, Big Ten football. If you live in the East Coast, for you, it's ACC. You know? So that's usually how that works for the fans. Yeah. However, I will say this though. I will say this. See, right now in the CFL, no Sunday games. And once the NFL season begins, they always got that Thursday night football game to kick off the season with the Super Bowl champions, right? Once their season begins, CFL will not have Thursday night football for the rest of the season because they don't want to go head to head with the NFL. That makes perfect sense, right? So CFL, they would have like a doubleheader on Friday night and Saturday night, or they might have one game Friday night and a triple header on Saturday. Yeah, that means they have to compete with college football. But obviously, they rather compete with college football than the NFL. Plus, I'm pretty sure a lot of Canadians, people that live in Canada, a lot of them probably don't watch much college football anyways, you know? So, yeah. So, another reason why I don't really watch a lot of college football games like I used to is mainly because of the CFL. I'll admit, 3 years ago in 2022, I got into watching the CFL until college football began their season. Yeah, I got distracted. On watching, college football. I got pulled away from the CFL. College football dragged me to their league, if it is a league. But yeah, and I know back then I could have watched both games at the same time, but I didn't really do that. Now recently I sometimes watch multiple things at the same time. But then the following year in 2023, I told myself, all right, I'm going to make sure I'm not going to get pulled away from the CFL once college football begins. And I didn't. I kept watching CFL games until the Grey Cup. After the Grey Cup, that's when I'll watch a lot of college football, which, we're talking like mid-November. Plus, that's when college football gets really good anyways. We're getting closer to the bowl season, the playoff. That's when it gets really good anyways. So, yeah, I have to keep watching the CFL. I have to, since I'm a big fan. Just like when the NFL begins their season, although they're not going to compete with the NFL, which is great for them. There's a guy on TSN named Davis Sanchez, and he covers both NFL and CFL. That's crazy. And there's a guy on ESPN named Booger McFarland. He covers both college football, mainly SEC football, and the NFL. That's crazy. Booger McFarland and Davis Sanchez. It's not easy covering two different leagues, That's like someone covering college basketball and the NBA, So, yeah, a lot of football coming up at the end of August and early September, and pretty much until the Grey Cup. A lot of football. I'm probably gonna turn into a football junkie I might. I'm probably going to turn into a football junkie. I mean, yeah. I guess technically I've been watching football since when the UFL began their season in late March. Here we are, 4.5 months later. I wonder how many people have done that. You watch, you can watch football all year, beginning with the UFL season in late March, CFL in summer and the fall. College football starts in late August. That Labor Day weekend. The weekend after that, NFL begins their season. You can do that all the way until the Super Bowl next year. You can watch football for, 10.5 months. You really can. But obviously, not many people do that. You can do that with soccer. Soccer is a worldwide sport. You can watch soccer all year long. You can watch pro wrestling all year long. There's probably pro wrestling junkies out there. They watch WWE, Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, AEW, Wednesday Night Dynamite, and their premium live events. I know who's a wrestling junkie. Dave LaGreca, the Busted Open podcast on SiriusXM that I do like to listen to. Some people, they just watch one sport. There's baseball junkies, basketball junkies, hockey junkies, tennis junkies, golf junkies, boxing junkies. Yeah. Like they'll watch like one sport. But when you watch a lot of different sports, it's not easy. Especially when they're on at the same time. Although nowadays you can watch multiple things at the same time. Back in the old days, for example, the Monday Night Wars era that I'm currently watching, both shows were happening at the same time. You really couldn't watch them at the same time unless if you have two TVs side by side. But a lot of people didn't have two TVs side by side, so instead they would like flip back and forth the channels, But now you don't have to do that with today's technology that we have. You can watch sports on not only your TV, your tablet, your laptop, your computer, or even your phone, whichever works. Or if not, you can always get radio. Better than nothing, So, yeah, there's probably horse racing junkies out there as well. You can watch that all year as well. Yeah, it's crazy, man. But yeah, once college football begins, I'll try to watch some games, but I have to keep focusing on the CFL. I can't just stop, I can't just pause like I did in 2022. I have to keep watching. Since that is my number one favorite league, I'm going to stay with the CFL as my number one favorite league until the Grey Cup. Yes, I know. We're also gonna have that. What's kind of unfortunate is that when American football season begins, that's also when Major League Baseball season gets really good as well. Interesting. It's not easy. Let me tell you something. I was listening to Christopher Mad Dog Russo throughout this week. He likes to talk about the schedule, and that's what I really like about him. He likes to talk about the schedule. Just like me sometimes. And I got a notification. I get ESPN notifications. I got a notification that no matter what, the World Series will begin on October 24, Saturday or Friday. even if somehow both American and National League Championship Series ends in 4 games, and we still have to wait like a week until Game 1 of the World Series, if that's the case, it is what it is. That's what they said. No matter what, Game 1 of the World Series will begin on Friday, October 24. Although last year they didn't say, they said something the complete opposite. I think they said that if both League Championship Series ends in 5 games or 4 games, then the World Series will begin on I think it was on a Wednesday or a Tuesday instead of Thursday or instead of Friday. You know, back then, the game for me, the first World Series I watched was in 2013. Back then, until I think 2022, Game 1 would be on a Tuesday night. Game 2 would be on a Wednesday night. Games 3, 4, and 5 would be on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. I think the reason why the World Series now begins on a Friday night, Game 2 Saturday night, Games 3, 4, and 5 Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, is because a couple years ago, 2022, that's when they made that change, right? That was also the year where I believe that was also the first year where they introduced more teams in the postseason, adding 2 extra teams in the postseason, as well as having the wild card games best of 3 instead of just 1 game like it's March Madness. And that's what led to the World Series beginning their series on Friday night. And I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that change. But I think that's also great for them because they're not going to go up against Sunday Night Football. They're not going to go up against Sunday Night Football. However, they're going to go up against Monday Night Football. And you know what that Monday Night Football matchup is? Christopher Mad Dog Russo said on his show, and I remember what the matchup is, and it's a big one. Washington Commanders against the Kansas City Chiefs. Wow. Perhaps a Super Bowl preview. The World Series, Game 3, is going to go up against that Monday Night Football matchup. Wow. So that's unfortunate for the MLB. Because you know damn well a lot of people are going to watch that Monday Night Football matchup, especially if both of those teams are going to be undefeated until that Monday Night Football matchup, until they meet. Oh, that's going to be huge. Especially, and if that's the case, I think that game's going to get more ratings than the World Series, Game 3. Especially, Christopher Mad Dog Russo, he said something like, especially if we get World Series, if the World Series, say it's the Milwaukee Brewers against the Seattle Mariners. Yeah. 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, the World Series was the Texas Rangers against the Arizona Diamondbacks, the 2 wild card teams. And that World Series, unfortunately, didn't get a lot of ratings because it was the Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks. No disrespect to those franchises. If you're a Rangers fan or a Diamondbacks fans, I'm just saying. But then last year, we got a huge World Series matchup because it was the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers, the two most popular teams. I'm pretty sure they are the two most popular teams. So that was great for the MLB to have those two teams meet. That's why I got excited. I got excited for that World Series last year. This year, the New York Yankees, they may not make the postseason. They've been losing a lot of games lately. But hey, I always look forward to the World Series, no matter what. My two least favorite teams are the Boston Red Sox and the Atlanta Braves. And if that's the World Series, I'll still watch it. I might not enjoy it that much because it's my two least favorite teams. I don't know, was that ever a World Series? I don't think so. If that's the World Series, I'm going to cheer for the Boston Red Sox. Because the Atlanta Braves, they beat the team that's closest to me, and that's the Houston Astros in 2021. And I used to be a Washington Nationals fan. I think I told you this story before. I used to be a Washington Nationals fan, and they're in the same division with the Atlanta Braves. Yeah. Plus, the Boston Red Sox has the former Houston Astros player, Alex Bregman. I've always liked him. Speaking of the Houston Astros, I forgot to mention in the last episode, Carlos Correa is back, has returned with the Houston Astros, and earlier this week, it was on Monday night, he returned to the Houston Astros Stadium, Daikin Park, formerly known as Minute Maid Park. And the crowd gave him a huge standing ovation. Let me tell you something. I got really disappointed when he left the Astros after the 2021 season. And, 2022, that was when he joined the Minnesota Twins. And 2022 was the same year the Houston Astros won that World Series title without him. It's kind of like in 2019, Bryce Harper signed with the Philadelphia Phillies. And then in 2019, his former team, the Washington Nationals, won the World Series without him. The difference is that Carlos Correa, he already won a World Series title in 2017, even though they cheated. Bryce Harper has never won a World Series title. Although I honestly thought the Houston Astros, they played against the Philadelphia Phillies in that World Series in 2022, and I thought the Phillies would win. I thought the Phillies were the hotter team. I thought they would win. And I thought they would go back to the World Series in 2023, but somehow they lost in the National League Championship Series to the Arizona Diamondbacks. And I believe they were up 3-1, which is crazy. That meant they lost Game 6 and 7 at home in Citizens Bank Park. That's the home of next year's All-Star Game, by the way. And I think before the season began, I gave you my World Series prediction. And I think my World Series prediction at the time, I said Boston Red Sox against the Philadelphia Phillies. The Red Series. Well, if that's the World Series, I'm going to cheer for the Phillies. Because I would like to see Bryce Harper win a World Series ring. I think he deserves one. Yeah. That's still a possibility. So yeah, I'm glad Carlos Correa is back with the Houston Astros, and so far he looked great. So hopefully he stays great going into the postseason, I'm pretty sure the Houston Astros will make the postseason, and I'm hoping by the time we get to the postseason, they'll bring back their best hitter, Yordan Alvarez. Yes. Okay, sorry if I sound like I'm all over the place. Sometimes it's like that. I'll talk about one topic that leads to another topic that leads to another topic. It's like I'm going in a cycle, you know. So anyways, I talked about the CFL game Thursday night, great matchup. Then I gave you the rest of my week 11 CFL predictions. And then what did I talk about after that? Football, American football, fall season, college football, NFL, they're starting their seasons pretty soon in a couple of weeks. And then that's when I mentioned that by the time college football begins, I'm still gonna be locked into the CFL. I have to still be locked in to the Canadian Football League until the Grey Cup, and then after the Grey Cup, I can be really locked in to college football. All right, and then that's when I got into, by the time college football and the NFL seasons start, that's when Major League Baseball season gets really interesting. Yeah, they're going to have a World Series game on Saturday night competing with some college football games. It is what it is. They have no choice. But what are they going to do? Play the World Series during the daytime? Actually, it used to be in the daytime a long time ago. My father is old enough to remember the World Series used to be played during the daytime. But this was back before TV was big. Colored TV was just getting started back in the mid 60s or early 60s. I don't remember exactly, but I think the first ever colored film was The Wizard of Oz. So yeah, man. Back then the World Series was played during the daytime. A bunch of baseball games were played during the daytime. Wrigley Field in the old days, they didn't have any lights. No stadium lights in Wrigley Field. But then Wrigley Field, I believe, was the last stadium to add stadium lights. But yeah, obviously they can't have it in the daytime anymore because of the TV audience. A lot of people go to school and work during the daytime anyways. But they got to compete against football. It is what it is. But if you mainly watch baseball, you got nothing to worry about, so it shouldn't bother you. But I'm curious to know about the ratings on especially that Monday night. That Monday night, I think that's October 26th or the 27th. That Monday Night Football matchup's a big one. Washington Commanders, the team that almost made the Super Bowl, against the team that was in 3 Super Bowls in a row, Kansas City Chiefs. That's a big matchup. But I will say this, though. Will I watch both games at the same time? No, I'm actually not. I'm only going to watch the World Series. I have to. Because it's the World freaking Series, for Pete's sakes. This is it, the championship game. That's like, remember that live stream I did of me watching the UFL championship game? That game was on at the same time as a Stanley Cup final game. And, hey, I love watching the Stanley Cup final. But I only watched the UFL championship game alone because it was just a one-game championship, So, but regular season games, I can watch some at the same time, but a championship game, that's the most important one, right? For example, when the Houston Astros won the World Series in 2022, that was on a Saturday night. And the big college football game was LSU against Alabama. And you know I live in South Louisiana. If you're watching this video, you see that? You see where my finger's pointing at? Look, that's a LSU helmet. Decoration. Up there, that's a LSU flag. I live in South Louisiana. A lot of people watch LSU football where I live. And I'm not a huge LSU fan, but I wish them well. And it was a huge game. LSU against Alabama right here in Tiger Stadium. That game was on at the exact same time as Game 6 of the 2022 World Series. Which game did I watch? I watched the World Series. I had to. My favorite team was in it, the Houston Astros. I've been to that stadium, Daikin Park, before. I have to watch that. Plus, they were leading 3-2 in that series. So I was like, yeah, forget LSU, Alabama. I'm watching the World Series. Me and my parents. We were probably the only South Louisiana fans that were watching the World Series instead of LSU, Alabama. And a lot of times, Alabama beats LSU, but that year LSU beat Alabama, and that was a great night. LSU beat Alabama, and the Houston Astros won the World Series that exact same night. Yes, I could have watched both games at the same time, but I didn't want to. Because the World Series to me, that's more important. It's a championship game. Was LSU Alabama a championship game? No, but it was a big game. So, you guys get the picture. All right, the last thing, let's check the standings real quick in the Major League Baseball. Oh, I got a notification that the Milwaukee Brewers, they won 10 games in a row, and their fans get free cheeseburgers? Now that's awesome. You can't free cheeseburgers for the Milwaukee Brewers. That's awesome for them. You know what? I don't think that team has ever won a World Series. That team is kind of cursed. Recent years, they would make the postseason, and they'll collapse. The Seattle Mariners are the only team to have yet made the World Series. That's crazy. They had that one year, I think it was in 2000 or 2001. They were like the best team, and they somehow didn't make the World Series. Yeah, the New York Yankees eliminated them. So this was the Yankees' golden era at the time, where they won 3 World Series titles in a row. All right. American League East, Toronto Blue Jays are winning. They're in the lead, 71 wins with 71 wins and 51 losses. Followed by the Boston Red Sox with 66 wins and 56 losses, 5 games behind. Yankees are right behind the Red Sox, 6.5 games behind. All right. I'm only going to go through the ones that are playoff contenders. All right, so most likely the Tampa Bay Rays are not going to make the playoffs postseason. Same with the Baltimore Orioles. American League Central, the Detroit Tigers Okay, they're in first place as well, 71 wins with 52 losses, followed by the Cleveland Guardians. They're 6.5 games behind. There's a chance that they might make the postseason. The Kansas City Royals, they're about average, 60 wins and 61 losses. But if they win a lot of games, then they might make the postseason. It's not going to be easy for them, though. They made the postseason last year, as well as the Guardians and the Tigers. Yeah, 3 teams in the Central made the playoffs last year. And I think the year before that, that division was the weak one. That was the weak division a couple of years ago. The American League West, the Houston Astros remain in first place with 68 wins and 53 losses, but the Seattle Mariners are right behind them, 1.5 games behind. The Texas Rangers are average, 61 wins and 61 losses, 7.5 games behind. Most likely the Anaheim Angels and the Athletics are not going to make it. They're not going to make the postseason. The National League East, the Philadelphia Phillies remain in first place with 69 wins and 52 losses, followed by the New York Mets, 5 games behind. I'm pretty sure both the Phillies and Mets, I expect those 2 teams to make the postseason. But the Marlins and the Braves, looks like they're not going to make it. National League Central, and how about those Milwaukee Brewers? They've been winning a lot of games lately with 76 wins and 44 losses. Followed by Five Tayer's favorite team, the Chicago Cubs, 8 games behind. Cincinnati Reds are 13 games behind. I don't think they're going to make the postseason. Same with the St. Louis Cardinals. They're average 61 wins and 61 losses. The National League, oh my gosh, the National League West, breaking news, the San Diego Padres are in first place. 69 wins and 52 losses, followed by the Los Angeles Dodgers, the World Series defending champions, with 1 game behind. Is this the first time that this has happened? The LA Dodgers are no longer in first place in the West, National League West this season. Is this the first time the San Diego Padres took over first place in that division? I think so. Arizona Diamondbacks, they have 60 wins and 62 losses, 9.5 games behind. San Francisco Giants, 10 games behind. I'm sorry, Rocky fans. There's probably not any Rockies fans listening to this anyways. 32 wins and 89 losses. 37 games behind. I think there's still a chance they might break the Chicago White Sox all-time losing record last year. All right, anything else before I wrap things up? Jeez. Okay, first off, the San Diego Padres, they won 5 games in a row. The LA Dodgers lost 4 games in a row. I'm looking on the ESPN app. They have the standings. They'll tell you their last 10 games, their record for their last 10 games, and the streaks. Padres have won 5 games in a row. The Dodgers lost 4 games in a row. And that's how the Padres take the lead, first place in the National League West. Jeez, this is the big news. The Milwaukee Brewers have won 12 games in a row. Wow, they are the hot team. They are the hot team. They have the most wins. Yeah, they have the most wins. 76 wins. Oh my gosh. Watch out for those Brewers. You know what? If they keep this up and they, they're going to make the postseason. I hope they don't collapse in the postseason again. You know, I wouldn't mind if this team makes the World Series. I'll probably cheer for that team. Depends on who they play against. Plus, they've never won a World Series, I don't think. You know, in the old days, they used to be in the American League. Yeah, let me look that up, because I was once, I like to look up the history of sports. The Milwaukee Brewers, they used to be in the American League. What division? So the Brewers, their first season was in 1970, and they were in the American League. Okay. East Division from 1972 to 1993. And then they were in the Central Division from 1994 to 1997. Okay. And then in 1998, they joined the National League. Isn't that weird? They were in the American League from 1969 to 1997. So we're talking 27 years. 1998. That's 27 years ago. Oh my gosh. Half and half. 27 years American League. Now it's 27 years in the National League. Yeah. So there you go. Of course, they had the great Bob Uecker with he had an iconic voice, Bob Uecker. So, God rest his soul. And yeah, wow. Hey man, this is when the MLB season is starting to get really interesting. We got about 2 months left of the regular season, a little over 2 months. So a lot can change. I'm confident that the Detroit Tigers will remain in first place and they'll win their division. I'm confident that the Toronto Blue Jays will make the postseason, but I don't know if they'll remain in first place. I'm confident that the Houston Astros will make the postseason, but I don't know if they'll remain in first place. I think the Seattle Mariners will also make the postseason as well. The National League, I expect both the Phillies and Mets to make it. Milwaukee Brewers, I think they're going to remain in first place in their division. I think the Chicago Cubs will also make the postseason. I think both the Padres and the Dodgers will make the postseason. So, 12 teams, I believe. Is it 12 teams that make the postseason? It used to be 10. I think it's 12 now. So, the fight for the wild card. So, it's the top 3 teams in the American League. Right now, it's the Mariners, Red Sox, and Yankees. National League, it's Cubs, Dodgers, and Mets. I think those 6 teams, most of those teams will make it. But yeah, what if the World Series is really the Mariners and the Brewers? Oh my gosh. 2 teams that have never won the World Series before. That's like the Super Bowl, the Detroit Lions against the Buffalo Bills. 2 teams that have never won the Super Bowl. One of those teams never made a Super Bowl appearance. Oh man, if that's a Super Bowl, I would totally watch that. That's a Super Bowl that America would watch. Yeah. Okay. So, I got some comments. It's been a while since I read some comments because, of my hiatus. I got 2 comments from the last episode of KSN, and I'm going to read them to you. The first one is from 5Tayer. He says, "My favorite sports podcast is back. I did watch almost every CFL Week 10 game outside of Friday, and I did not regret it. I'm doing it again next week, which is this weekend, but instead skipping Thursday. And Thursday, your favorite team was playing that night. And it was a great win for your favorite team. Yeah, you are my biggest fan." Do you listen to other podcasts, or am I the only podcast that you listen to? If you listen to other podcasts, like me, can you tell me which ones you listen to? Especially after that 2-hour episode of me talking about all the podcasts that I like listening to. But hey, if I have to pick one podcast to listen to, it would have to be Mad Dog Unleashed with Christopher Mad Dog Russo, because that's my number one favorite sports podcast. If I have to pick one sports league to watch, it would have to be the CFL, because that's my number one favorite league. All right, I got another comment from, I think this is a new subscriber or a new viewer. I'm not familiar with this username. At Zach-K9L6K says, "Today I was listening to a new episode of the Tony Kornheiser Show, and he had on ESPN baseball analyst Tim Kurkjian. And he has a new podcast that he does with his son called Is This a Great Game or What? I subscribe to it on Amazon Music." Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for your comment. I've always enjoyed listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show, and that was the first podcast that I mentioned in that 2-hour plus episode. Yeah, who doesn't like him? He's one of the OGs on ESPN. Pardon the Interruption. That is like my favorite ESPN show that I like listening to. Yeah, him, Michael Wilbon, PTI. It's like the best 30-minute sports talk show. All right, so, yeah, I've always liked Tony Kornheiser. And I've always liked Tim Kurkjian as well. Tim Kurkjian, he's been covering baseball since, I think, 1979. Jeez, that's a long time. Yeah, I've always liked the ESPN personalities. Oh, MLB on ESPN personalities. And is this really their final year broadcasting games? I hope not, because they are my favorites. I like them more than MLB on Fox and MLB on TBS as well. My second favorite is probably the MLB Network. Okay, I did not know he has a new podcast. I'll have to check that out. Thank you for telling me that, because I've always liked listening to Tim Kurkjian. Okay, on Amazon Music, I'll have to find that out. All right. Okay, I think that's it. So, I'll be back on Monday. Yep. Recap the rest of CFL Week 11, as well as I'm going to talk more about the upcoming college football and NFL seasons. So yeah, a lot of football talk coming up for the next couple of weeks. All right, folks. That is it. Aha! The old intro as my permanent outro music. Yeah. I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Peace out. Thank you for listening to Keith's Sports News.